I want to start with a phone call. Not the phone call where I found out, not the confrontation call, not the lawyer call, not any of the calls you might be imagining. The phone call I want to start with happened on an ordinary Thursday afternoon in February, while I was sitting in my car in a supermarket car park with 2 bags of shopping going warm on the back seat. My husband's name came up on my screen, which was not unusual. What was unusual was the voice that spoke when I answered. It was not my husband. It was a woman. She said my name, my first name, not Mrs. Anything, in a tone that was careful and deliberate, the tone of someone who has rehearsed what they are about to say enough times that the words come out level even though the person saying them is not level at all. She said, "My name is Cara. I think we need to talk. I think there are things you don't know and things I don't know, and I think we are both owed an honest conversation." I did not say anything for a moment. Then I asked where my husband was. She said, "He's sitting right next to me. He doesn't know I'm making this call. I took his phone while he was in the bathroom." I want to be precise about what I felt in the 10 seconds after she said that, because I think it matters. It was not shock. My husband, I'll call him Ryan, had been behaving differently for 8 months. Not differently enough that I could have pointed at anything specific. Differently in the way that a room feels different when something has been moved, but you can't identify what. I had been living in that feeling for 8 months without being able to name it. When Cara spoke from Ryan's phone, what I felt was not shock. It was something closer to the specific, horrible relief of a diagnosis. The thing I had been sensing without being able to name had a name now. She said, "Can we meet?" I said yes, before I had consciously decided to. We met the following morning at a coffee shop 40 minutes from where either of us lived. Her idea, and a good one, for reasons I understood immediately when I thought about it. I had not slept. This is not a dramatic detail, it is a practical one. I spent the night I should have been sleeping, making a list of everything I was going to need to know before I decided anything. Because I am a person who functions better with a list than without one, and because the alternative to making a list was sitting with what I was feeling, and I was not ready to do that yet. Cara was already there when I arrived. She was younger than I had imagined, not dramatically younger, perhaps 4 years younger than me, which made her 31. She was not what I had constructed in the 8 months I had spent trying not to think about whether something was wrong. She looked, if I am honest, like someone who had also not slept. She looked like someone who was also sitting with something they were not ready to sit with. She said, "I didn't know about you. I want to say that first. I knew he was married. He told me his marriage had been over for 2 years. He told me you were separated in everything but paperwork." I asked her how long. She said, 11 months. Ryan and I had celebrated our 8th anniversary 7 months ago. I had planned the dinner. I had bought the thing he'd mentioned wanting. I had sat across from him in a restaurant I'd booked 3 weeks in advance, and he had looked at me the way he always looked at me, and said it had been the best 8 years of his life. 3 months into the 11 months of whatever he was doing with Cara, he had sat across from me at dinner and said it had been the best 8 years of his life. Cara put her phone on the table between us. She had a message thread open. I am not going to describe the contents in detail, because some of it belongs to her, and some of it I would rather not have read, and some of it I cannot unread now, even though I would like to. What I will tell you is the relevant part. In the message thread, dated 6 weeks earlier, Ryan had told Cara that he was going to leave me by the end of the year. He had told her he loved her. He had told her that what they had was the real thing and that he had never felt this way before. The specific sentence that people apparently never stop using even when it is the 3rd or 4th time they have used it, and that he needed a little more time to manage the logistics of leaving. 6 weeks ago, when I had been sitting in a marriage I did not know was being managed as a logistical problem. Cara turned the phone over so neither of us could see the screen. She said, "He told you the same things, didn't he?" It was not a question. I did not answer it, but she already knew. There is something I want to say about what happened in that coffee shop that I have not said to many people. because it is one of the more complicated things I have had to make sense of in the last 2 years. Cara was not my enemy. This sounds obvious when I say it now. It did not feel obvious in the first 20 minutes of sitting across from her when I was still managing the raw fact of her existence. But as the conversation extended, and it extended well beyond the single coffee I had expected, past a second coffee I hadn't planned on, into the late morning and then the early afternoon, something shifted. What shifted was this. I began to understand that she was sitting with the same inventory of ruined things that I was. Different items on the list, but the same process of going through them, the same retroactive re-examination of things she had believed, the same specific humiliation of understanding that someone had looked you in the face repeatedly and constructed a reality they knew was not true. She had also built something, not what I had built. We had been married 8 years, we had a house, we had the specific gravity of 2 lives merged for a long time. But she had built something. She had reorganized her life around a version of Ryan that he had carefully constructed and consistently maintained, and that had turned out to be, in its foundations, entirely fabricated. We were both sitting with the same man's lies, from different sides. At some point, I cannot remember which of us said it first, and I have asked her since, and she cannot remember either. One of us said, "What are we going to do about this?" Not "what am I going to do?" What are we going to do? That was the moment the conversation changed. I want to spend significant time on this chapter because it is the part of the story that matters most, and because I think the version of it that tends to get told, 2 wronged women team up and immediately take dramatic action, is not what actually happened, and the actual version is more interesting. What actually happened was careful. It was slow. It took 6 weeks from the coffee shop to the first concrete action, and those 6 weeks were the most deliberately constructed 6 weeks of my life. Here is what we did and why we did it in the order we did it. The first thing I did, the same evening I got home from the coffee shop, before I said a single word to Ryan, was call a divorce attorney, not to file anything, to understand my position before I made any visible move. My attorney told me the same thing Cara's attorney told her when she called hers the following day. Document everything, move nothing, say nothing, and do not let him know you know until you have assembled everything you are going to need. So we didn't. For 6 weeks, Ryan continued his life with the serene confidence of a man who believed he was managing 2 situations simultaneously and that both of them were under control. He came home on the evenings he came home. He saw Cara on the evenings he told me he was working late or traveling. He maintained the specific performance of normal that people who are living 2 lives learn to perform with the fluency of long practice. And we documented. Cara kept records of every communication between them. Dates, times, what was said. I gathered our financial records, accounts, assets, anything that would be relevant in a settlement negotiation. I noted every time he was not where he said he was. I did not confront him. I did not change my behavior. I sat across from him at dinner, and I listened to him talk about his day, and I asked the questions a wife asks, and I noted the time on my phone when he said he'd be home, and the time he actually arrived, because those gaps were also part of the picture. There was one specific thing Cara discovered during those 6 weeks that changed the scale of what we were dealing with. She found out about the third one. There had been a woman before her, not a long relationship, 6 months perhaps, that had ended before Cara. Ryan had told Cara about her obliquely, in the way that people who are practiced at this frame previous situations, as something that had been a mistake, a moment of weakness during a difficult period in my marriage, nothing like what he and Cara had. He had used the previous situation to make Cara feel like she was different, special, the real version rather than the version he was apparently capable of before he met her. The woman before Cara was called Maya. Cara found her through a mutual connection neither of them had known they shared. She reached out. Maya had been told the same things, the marriage that was over in everything but paperwork, the end of the year, the logistics. 3 women, the same script. delivered with the specific fluency of someone who had refined it across multiple performances. When Cara told me about Maya, I sat very still for a long time. Then I asked, does she want to be part of this? She did. I am going to describe the week that followed carefully, because the order in which things happened matters, and because I want to be accurate about what we chose to do and what we chose not to do. We did not go to the press. We did not post anything publicly. We did not do anything that could be described as a campaign. What we did was specific, targeted, and, in every case, simply the act of making true information available to the people who needed it. On a Monday morning, Ryan's manager at work received an email. It came from Cara's email address. It was 3 paragraphs. It explained that Cara was a current employee of the same company. She and Ryan worked in different departments but at the same firm, which was the original context in which they had met, and that she had been in a relationship with Ryan for 11 months, during which time he had represented himself as separated from his wife. It stated that this was not the case. It attached 3 pieces of documentation: a message in which Ryan referred to Cara using language that breached the company's internal relationship disclosure policy, a message in which he had explicitly told Cara she was not to speak to his line manager about their relationship under any circumstances, and a message in which he had used his work calendar to block time that he had told Cara was for them, but that cross-referenced with times he had told me he was in client meetings. The company's HR policy required disclosure of relationships between employees. Ryan had not disclosed. The messages attached to the email were not editorialized. They did not accuse him of anything beyond what the messages themselves demonstrated. HR contacted him that afternoon. On Tuesday morning, the message thread I had compiled, the complete record of his movements against his stated schedule for the previous 4 months, went to my divorce attorney, who used it to open the formal divorce proceedings. Ryan received the papers on Wednesday. On Thursday, Maya sent a message to the mutual friends, the specific friends who had watched Ryan and me together for 8 years, who had sat at our table and shared our occasions and spoken warmly about our marriage. A message that explained, simply and without embellishment, what she had experienced. She did not speak for Cara or for me. She spoke only for herself. She told them what she had been told, what she had believed, and what she had later found out. By Thursday evening, Ryan's phone had not stopped. On Friday, Cara resigned from the company, not because she had been asked to. HR's conclusion had been directed entirely at Ryan's conduct. She resigned because she had decided she did not want to work in the same building as him, and because she had found a better position, which she had been quietly interviewing for during the 6 weeks we had been preparing. She had timed the resignation for Friday so that his final piece of news that week would be watching her leave. He saw her in the lobby on her way out. She did not stop. I want to be precise here, rather than satisfying. Ryan was placed on a performance improvement plan by HR following the disclosure investigation. He was not fired. This is the version that is less dramatic than people expect, and I am telling it accurately because I think the accurate version is more useful than the dramatic one. What actually happened to Ryan was not a single catastrophic event. It was a series of smaller collapses, spread across several months, each of which eroded something he had been relying on. He lost the credibility he had built with colleagues who now knew the specific details of how he had conducted himself. He lost the social infrastructure of the friends who had, without announcement but with quiet consistency, stopped including him in the things they had previously included him in. He lost the financial position he had been assuming he would walk away from the marriage with, because the documentation I had compiled gave my attorney the leverage to negotiate a settlement that did not reflect the version of events he had intended to present. He did not lose everything at once. He lost things in an order that meant he had time to understand what was happening before the next thing went. I have thought about whether this was crueler or kinder than a single event would have been. I have not arrived at a conclusion. Cara moved to a different city for her new job. We speak occasionally, not often, not with the intensity of the connection we had during those 6 weeks, but with the specific warmth of two people who shared something they could not have shared with anyone else, and who understand that about each other without needing to say it. Maya and I have had dinner twice. She is one of the most grounded people I have met, and I mean that without irony. I have been trying to understand what it means that the person who helped me most during the worst period of my life was someone I had, for 8 months, been afraid to think about. Not afraid of, exactly. Afraid to think about. There is a specific kind of avoidance that operates around the things we are not ready to know, and I had been practicing it for 8 months with the efficient dedication of someone who has built a life they don't want to examine. The avoidance was not stupidity. It was, I think now, the necessary pace of processing, the speed at which I could absorb what was coming without breaking things I was not ready to break. When Cara called from Ryan's phone on a Thursday afternoon in February, she broke the avoidance. Not the situation, the avoidance of the situation. And the thing she offered in its place was not comfort, exactly. It was clarity. And what I found was that clarity, however brutal, is easier to live in than the specific fogged discomfort of knowing something without being able to look at it. There is a version of this story where Cara and I are enemies, where I direct my anger at the wrong target, where she believes herself to have won something she hasn't won, where Ryan walks through the gap between us and emerges relatively unscathed. I have thought about that version. I know people who have lived that version. There is also a version where two women who were given the same speech, handed the same script, made to feel like the exception rather than the pattern, recognize each other across a coffee shop table for what they actually are, not rivals, evidence. The thing Ryan could not have predicted, in all the elaborate management of two lives running simultaneously, was that the two people he was most careful to keep separate would speak, that they would compare notes, that they would find in comparing them not just the evidence of what he had done, but the specific blueprint of how he had done it, refined across at least 3 iterations, delivered with decreasing originality, applied to people he had calculated would not talk to each other. He was wrong about that last part. That is karma filed. Real betrayal, real documentation, real consequences, delivered in the right order to the right people. If this story hits somewhere, and I think it will, because the script Ryan ran is not a unique script, and the people who have heard it will recognize it, subscribe, hit the bell, and drop one word in the comments: evidence. I'll know you made it to the end. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next video.